Hewitt was still engaged in palaver with the chiefs of Benin when a British naval officer brought him alarming news of a foreign gunboat in Cameroon. There was a report that those on board were negotiating a treaty with King Aqua and King Bell. However, the kings had agreed to give Hewitt a week to make a counter offer. Hewitt dropped everything. On the afternoon of 19th of July, HHS Fleet steamed into the harbor at Belltown. Hewitt peered through the heat haze and then rubbed his eyes. 3 foreign flags were flying from flagstaffs among the mangrove swamps. But they were not the red, white, and blue of the tricolor. They carried the black cross of Kaisers Germany. 5 days earlier, the famous German explorer, Dr. Gustav Nachtigal, now Imperial Consul General for the West Coast of Africa, had been rowed ashore from the gunboat Mo, by a party of German blue jackets. He informed the astounded British traders that he was taking possession of Cameroon in the name of the German emperor. Bismarck had stolen a march on everyone. Nothing could now stop that unseemly and dangerous race. The most feverish phase of the scramble had begun. The British plan had been for Nigeria, right? So the British plan had for Nigeria to include the whole of the territory that became German Cameroon. It was a plan that had now been disrupted by Bismarck's move. Lugard explained the development as follows. Germany, on the other hand, found herself with a great and increasing industrial population, in urgent need of raw materials and additional food supplies. Not content with the wholly unrestricted market offered by British colonies, where Germans were welcomed and exercised every privilege equally with their British rivals, she not unnaturally desired to have colonies of her own. Bismarck had along disclaimed any interest in taking colonies in Africa to keep the European rivals off the scent. Having now proclaimed Germany's big power status with the defeat of France, he saw in the scramble for what remained of independent Africa an opportunity to play the French off against their traditional rivals, Britain. It was no accident that it was Bismarck himself who hosted the Berlin Conference, which began in 15th November 1884. Popular commentary on the Berlin Conference of 1884 gives the impression that it was at the conference that the African continent was carved up and the boundaries of the African states were drawn. The conference was more concerned with agreeing the rules by which the game was to be played. The Berlin Act 1885, which codified the results of the deliberation, faithfully recorded the interest parties as follows. In the name of God Almighty, Her Majesty the Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Empress of India, His Majesty the German Emperor, King of Prussia, His Majesty the King of Austria, King of Bohemia, etc., an Apostolic King of Denmark, His Majesty the King of Spain, the President of the United States of America, the President of the French Republic, His Majesty the King of Italy, His Majesty the King of the Netherlands, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, etc., His Majesty the King of Portugal and the Algarves, etc., His Majesty the Emperor of all the Russias, His Majesty the King of Sweden and Norway, etc., and His Majesty the Emperor of Ottomans. So, The Act of Navigation for the River Niger, which came out of the conference deliberations, spoke primarily to the two main contestants, Britain and France, having first laid down the overarching principle of toll-free navigation for chiefs of all nations. It went on to appoint these two powers as custodians of the river. And the act then went on, for the sake of good order, to set out how the interested parties were to announce their claims to each new territory, to each other. According to them, this was how. Any power which henceforth takes possession of a tract of land on the coast of the African continent outside its present possessions, or which, being hitherto without such possessions, shall acquire them, as well as the power which assumes a protectorate there, shall accompany the respective act with a notification thereof, addressed to the other signatory powers of the present act, in order to enable them, if need be, to make good any claims of their own. Although the business of the Berlin Conference was conducted with the utmost civility between the delegates, the act recognized that military force will be the ultimate determinant of any claim of ownership. The signatory powers of the present act recognize that obligation to ensure the establishment of authority in the regions occupied by them on the coast of the African continent, sufficient to protect existing rights, and as the case may be, freedom of trade and transit upon the conditions agreed. This meant that any power making a claim to a territory was obliged to show that it was in actuality, the occupying power of the land. Paper claims alone will not do. This required the subjugation of the native powers. The other significant development in the year 1884 was the intervention of the Maxim gun was invented. A machine gun with the emphasis on the word machine, on account of its automated system for ejecting each spent cartridge and reloading. It was the principal weapon by which the British demonstrated effective presence in the construction of their empire. Winston Churchill, the future British Prime Minister, then a war journalist, is said to have described the Maxim gun as that mechanical scattering of death, which the polite nations of the earth have brought to such monstrous perfection. From this point onwards, the colonization process was never going to meet any significant native resistance, especially as a strict prohibition on the sale of arms to Africans was in place, so that there was never any prospect of any equality of arms. The one thing the Berlin Act of 1885 and the Brussels Act of 1892 did succeed in effecting was the restriction of the import of arms of precision to the natives, theoretically as a check to the slave trade, but with the practical result of rendering the Africa more powerless than ever to resist conquest by Europeans. For this part, Bismarck knew that the conference would not be the final word on colonial possessions. He knew that a conflict lay ahead between Germany and Britain. In anticipation of this, he ensured that Germany took territory next to the key British territories on the African continent, Cameroon to be next to Nigeria, Togo to be next to Ghana, Namibia to be within the striking distance of what was then Rhodesia, and Tanganyika to be next to Kenya. The colonization of Yoruba land. Although by this time the Alaafin of Oyo was king of Yoruba only in name, Still in the battle of documents of title between the colonial powers, a treaty with him would still, hang on. A treaty with him would still trump anything rival our claimant might obtain. On 23rd May 1888, Governor Moloney sent the Alaafin of Oyo an offer to help him reassemble the broken pieces of his empire. So, in part, Moloney wrote Alaafin and said, as you know, and every Yoruba knows, people to the west and to the north are not Yoruba. They differ in feelings and object from Yorubas. You would have doubtless learned I always aim at making all Yoruba-speaking people one in art, as they are in tongue. Towards such unity, I attach much importance to a definite and permanent understanding between these Yoruba-speaking people and this colony, which is mainly inhabited by Yorubas. And where should I look first for sympathy and support but to Adeyemi, the Alaafin of Oyo, the titular king of all Yorubas? Between you and the governor of the Queen's Colony of Lagos, there should be ever friendship, goodwill, which no foreign interference should allow to influence or disturb. Then they toast Alaafin Adeyemi. Yoruba land was comprised traditionally as regards its corners a few years ago of Yoruba proper, Egba, Ketu, and Ijebu. Where is Ketu now? And from what direction was it destroyed? Without the entertainment of least desire to meddle with the government of such kingdoms as Yoruba, Egba, or Ijebu, and with the assurance that not one yard of land is coveted by me, in feeling and sympathy for Yoruba Union, I desire that that Lagos take the place of Ketu as the fourth corner. If the accompanying document be agreeable to you and embodies your wishes, sign it and return it to me. Alaafin Adeyemi signed the treaty under which he promised that no cession of territory and no other treaty or agreement shall be made by me, other than the one I have now made without the full understanding and consent of the governor for the time being of the said colony of Lagos. Alaafin of Oyo, who have lost all his kingdoms, who was only bearing Alaafin of Oyo just by name. He had no kingdom left. Took the offer of the British governor in British colony of Lagos, to help him reunite the Yoruba, with the promise that they won't take a piece of land of Yoruba land from them. But it was double speak. It was a lie. Okay? So the governor of the British colony in Lagos, decided to move on after receiving the signed treaty from Alaafin. In return, the government of Lagos, on the 23rd of July, 1888, pledged to him a yearly dash of 200 bags of cowries, conditional upon satisfactory observance of all terms. On 23rd July, 1888, less than a year later, on 10th of August, 1889, the British and the French signed the Treaty of Paris, dividing the people of French Yoruba land in Republic of Benin and Togo from their relations in British Yoruba land, in what will become southwest Nigeria. The southernmost tip of the boundary between the Yoruba-speaking people is at the former slave port of the Badagry. The treaty with the Alaafin was ratified on the 16th of June, 1890. But in the broken kingdom, it meant little without the reassurance of separate treaties with the major tribes. And so the governor of Lagos proceeded to obtain these separate treaties from the Egba, from the Jebus, the Ibadans, and the others. Governor Carter left Lagos on the 3rd January 1893 for his tour. He was accompanied by a posse of Hausa soldiers with Captain Boa, one of the officers who came out for the Ijebu War. The Maxim gun was an evidence throughout the whole day. The colonization of Niger Delta. I still have like about, let's check, what time is it? Now we are already over that 3, so I've got just 1 hour before. It's actually still sort of a long read. So including the colonization of the caliphate and all that. So that is where we are going to draw the curtains on the reading this afternoon, okay? So we will continue from the colonization of Niger Delta, all right? And then on, we take it on from there. The colonization of Niger Delta. Let's see if that camera can scan it through for us. Right, can scan it through for us. So we will do that of the colonization of Niger Delta, the colonization of this and that, how they all played out and how they happened, and we will do that some other time. So I'm taking a break now. Initially, we were supposed to take calls. Calls should be reactions, and I would really love the reactions to probably be more on the on the book and all that, okay? And not mostly something that is unrelated, right? So what I'm going to do now is that I am going to keep the line open. If you have any question, if you have what you want to add or say to this as well, you are most welcome. But let's go for a short break. Don't go anywhere yet. That's right. Now, thank you so much, everyone, for again spending your afternoon with me. We do have a lot that we probably are going to tackle later in the evening, but by popular demand, people wanted us to read this out. Okay, read it out and let people know where they come from. No matter what the fossil identity they are putting up every now and then. This does help, okay? It guides you, it gives you the better clarity. You begin to feel like, oh, so we were actually like a independent people before they brought this war of slavery, of colonization, and the rest of that. And then they turn around to kind of say it again that, oh, they are the ones who are trying to save us. They are trying to save us from ourselves. It's like catching a fish from the water. And they say, why did you have to catch that fish? I mean, what are you trying to do with the fish? And then you say, oh, I'm trying to like rescue the fish from drowning. So you guys say you are rescuing the fish from drowning. That's why you are removing it from the water. That's exactly what the colonialists did. They did so well. And honestly speaking, as I was reading that, I felt like I was actually like watching some classic old historical slavery movies, you know, that kind of a slave trade or slave kind of movies that way. But you begin to see what people went through, and how these colonial thugs were able to deceive the locals, turn one brothers against brothers, harm one, give guns to this one, give weapons to that one, kill yourselves. And at the end of the day, by the time the brothers finish killing themselves, now foreigner, they now own their resources. And we are still with that. Our ancestors who got deceived and turned and all of that during that time, right? Majority of them are gone. All of them are gone. And here we are, inheriting that, what do you call it? Inheriting that that event, inheriting that kind of downgrading, sort of brainwashing. And no thanks to their religion as well. They really did a number on us. All right. So tomorrow, when we want to read again tomorrow, it's going to be Why We Struck. That's what we're going to read tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to start that as well, like chapter by chapter. Chapter by chapter. Why We Struck. Why We Struck. So we're going to have that tomorrow, and almost same time. You see? Let me see if I can see the forward. Political prelude, right? Let me read part of that so that we can have a clue or inkling of what we will be having tomorrow when we read the Why We Struck. A lot of people have told you a lot about this book, yeah? I'll read the forward. So, and it is from Adewale Ademoyega. Adewale Ademoyega is not a writer. Adewale Ademoyega was one of the people who carried out the coup. This book is written by one of the people who carried out the first coup in Nigeria history. That those who carried out retaliatory coup are run back to the north. They ended up being the ones who now write the history, the story of the coup. And since they decided to turn it to Igbo coup, this book will tell you more. Okay? It is the first and the only coup in Nigeria that indeed was pretty much like national sort of a coup. It's the only coup where you have everyone from every part of Nigeria, because they thought they were rescuing Nigeria from ethnic bigots, religious fanatics, extremists, greedy, selfish, ruling class. They thought they wanted to save me and you so that we won't exist in a country that is xenophobic like that of Nigeria now, right? A country that is so divided and poor as well, right? People are like, they can't wait to kill themselves. So those guys who planned the coup, they thought they wanted to save me and you coming into this world to be part of this mess. But they failed. And their failure wasn't the entire thing they are trying to correct. So this is the book. I'll read the forward. At last, the missing link in our contemporary history is being supplied by Adewale Ademoyega, a former major in the combat arm of the Nigerian army. He is one of the historical trio who planned and executed the first Nigerian coup d'etat of January 15, 1966. Hitherto, we had been treated to half-truth and sometimes imaginary stories by those who claim to know the real motives behind the said coup. That Ademoyega is alive and able to place his account on record can only be attributed to the guiding hands of Providence. Else, posterity would have lost for all time this vital link. If we agree with S.E. Feiner, the author of Man on Horseback, that the regimes where the military are the decisive political factors form a distinct class, which we may call the empirical autocracies and oligarchies. And since Ademoyega enlisted into the officer corps of the Nigerian army as a revolutionary, with principles affixed in his mind to correct the social ills of Nigeria, then one can only commend him for being faithful to those principles to the end. However, had Major Nzeogu and other revolutionaries a valid case for bringing a violent change to the political scene of Nigeria as at the morning of January 15, 1966? Was the empirical autocracy or oligarchy which they set out to obliterate actually in existence? And if so, is it still in existence today? Would there have been a drastic change for better in the course of Nigerian history if the revolutionaries had succeeded ideologically, even partially? Right. Have their heirs, that is, the military and the Second Republic, learned anything? Is Nigerian history not repeating itself exactly in the 80s as in the 60s? The answer to this and numerous other questions that should arise as a result of writing this book would have a strong interplay with or without the usual apologies to our reading public, but particularly the armed forces officers and men. In these pages, they will find invaluable lessons on man management and leadership qualities under stress. July 1981, Major General Emmanuel O. Abisoye, that's the person who gave the foreword to the book. Here is another one called the preface. I'll read that too. He said, a lot has been written about the motivations, actions, and purposes of the revolution that jacked Nigeria into self-consciousness on January 15, 1966. Much of what has been written was merely deduced from what the author saw or heard. So far, nothing has been published by any of the actual revolutionaries. This is the first authentic account of the revolution. It is written by the only surviving member of the innermost group that planned the revolution. Everything has been done to ensure that this book is accurate and that it depicts the revolution and all that followed it exactly as they were seen from the center of that great event, which has proved to be the first major milestone in the history of political development of Nigeria since independence was attained. My gratitude goes to my friends who have encouraged me to write this book. I do hope that they and all entire reading public will be enriched in their knowledge of the truth, which is herein depicted. So we will do that tomorrow. I'm going to start from chapter 1, the political prelude. That's what we're going to start from tomorrow, the political prelude. So yes, I have other recommended readings, but you know something about reading is that only few people really are interested in facts. It will shock you, it will surprise you. Okay? Only few people are really interested. So many others, they would rather believe the lie and keep believing that lie they were told. So you're trying to tell them that all they have believed all their lives, majority of them have been lies. So automatically your history is not correct, Nia. So that's why I do not always expect a lot of people to join me when I am reading like this, because majority of them would rather just stay away or prefer where the fictitious assumptions and innuendos have become what they call the history, and that has sort of validated their own different prejudices or biases against themselves. So it works well that way. Why change it? So that is why when I am reading like this, I always know that I do not expect a lot of people. It has always been like that. But to those of you who took your time to really sit back and listen, you know, I want to say thank you to you. And I know a lot of you are saying thank you to me too. So it's, you know, it's mutually, what do you call it? It's mutual now, right? Anyway, I was going to take a call, but it seems that the ideal now is we can leave it, okay? And we can all probably have a chat around that later this evening. So I'll take, I'll go for my, I'm gonna, okay, somebody said I should take maybe one or two. Okay, let's have this. I'll take that. Hello there. Hello, oh, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, Mayego.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Mayego General,
How are you?